What song reminds you of sixth grade? Which one makes you feel invincible? What song got you through a hard breakup? Which one do you play after a miserable day at work? These are the questions Shaka Mitchell asks in his Come Together music project. It's helped people with opposing political views have a civil conversation about hard topics like immigration, abortion, even racism. Surely it can help a creative and an account person get along during a weekly status. This project is gold. We all have answers to these questions, and each answer helps reveal the depth of our humanity. A depth that gets lost way too easily under the pressure of timelines and timesheets. No timeline is worth losing our connection to our humanity, no matter what Silicon Valley or Wall Street try to tell us. Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. This episode is a part of our ongoing Prohuman Series in partnership with the Prohuman Foundation. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Shaka. Okay, Shaka Mitchell, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Hey, TJ, great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. I'd love to give you a chance to just tell a little bit about yourself before we start diving into some of this stuff. So what do you do for work and how'd you come to be doing it?
Yeah, I'll give you the really quick version because that's going to be the least interesting part of this podcast.
Excellent.
So I'm a lawyer by training, and my day job is that I work for a national nonprofit organization called the American Federation for Children. So we work to make sure that every child has meaningful access to the education of best fit. And so we work to pass laws to make that happen. You can call it educational choice, school choice. We're really agnostic about school type, but we just work in that space because we feel like education is still really important to accessing, a future that makes sense for you.
I love that. And it is kind of interesting what you do because I think, the discussions around education are feeling like there's actually like a need to rapidly kind of rethink some of what we're doing. And so in that realm of school choice, I imagine there's probably some schools popping up that are really rethinking what it really looks like because we're preparing kids for something the world is just so different than the model that we've probably had for 100 years.
Absolutely. Well, if you think about parents today, if you're the parent of a school-age child, the range of school options that you have and then what's happening in those classrooms, it's so different from what was happening 20 years ago that in some cases, it's kind of like climbing Everest. It can feel that way where you can try it by yourself, but if you want to be successful, you kind of need like a Sherpa to help you up the mountain.
I can imagine. Yeah. It's got to be pretty intense. And there's obviously a lot of weight put on those kinds of choices for justifiable reasons. So I get it. I love that you're helping folks with that. On that note of the work you do, like what role does the work you do play in your life?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something that I feel really passionately about. I don't think you get into the advocacy space just for kicks, meaning most people who work in whether it's education, advocacy and policy or environmental stuff or, healthcare, you pick your issue. I think they care about it. I think they care about the outcomes. I think most of them care about people, the people who are the recipients of these policies and these decisions.
Yeah.
So that's definitely true for me. I just feel really strongly about education being such a powerful lever. That being said, at the same time, something that I try to remind myself and others, and listen, I don't get this right all the time, but it's to say, if all of the people working in policy are 100% efficacious at their jobs, we are not going to create heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Because the problem is going to be that we're still here, right? Yeah. And we have a way of messing things up. And so I think you have to keep it in perspective to go this can both be really important, but not everything. So, so that's like my day job. My not quite day job, but full-time role is, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I've got 3 kids. That's the important stuff.
Yeah. I mean, how do you help yourself kind of keep it all properly weighted in your life?
Well, I think having a partner that helps you do that is really important.
Yeah.
So you can sort of have someone that's a ballast and go, hey, I think that we need to recalibrate a little bit. You're maybe doing too much, and I am prone to do too much.
Yeah.
And so that's really helpful. I mean, I think for me, my faith is very helpful in that, to sort of be reminded, like, oh, you are not the first person in history to think that their job is important.
Yeah.
That is, like basically from day one, that's been the case, and it does not usually end well if you're investing everything you do in your vocation. So I think the perspective is helpful. And then actually, I mean, something you would know more about than me, I think if you've got a healthy perspective, it actually makes the work a little lighter.
I think you're right. I mean, I do think if we fully immerse ourselves in it, it can take on the weight of the world, I think. And there's probably like a certain weight that feels right. Like you want to be carrying something, but when it's everything, you can't get out from under it. You can't see clearly. I think you're right about that. I mean, I wonder what in your experience has made work suck the most, and then maybe what's helped you get out of it.
Okay. So if I think about I don't even know if it's like systems or specific items. I mean, and maybe many of your guests are like this. If I think about what's made it the worst, I actually think about like some specific times.
Okay.
And I'll say the first one that came to mind is a time when it wasn't my first management role, but it was a time when I felt the weight of an organization in a new way.
Yeah.
And I felt the need to check on everything. And all of a sudden, nobody raises their hand and says, I love micromanaging. No one says that.
Yeah.
But if you really believe that everything in the job or in the organization reflects on you, right? Like if you have completely made the circles overlap with your identity and the job, that is a recipe for micromanagement. And that's what I found. And that did not go well. I was miserable. So so that was, it was both things. It was the management element of doing that, some tactics and techniques that were probably really bad. But deeper than that, it was me just taking it on as identity in a way that was like, hey, why you have colleagues?
Right.
Because they have jobs too, because they can have a hand in this, and hopefully they're talented and qualified and can do some of this too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of interesting insights in there. I think it comes back to like taking it on as the full weight of the world. I think the idea that micromanaging is something that people want to do. I think some people, at times you can feel like that. But I think your point is well taken, that it really is just a technique to feel safe in that kind of environment, and with those beliefs that you're carrying around how critical every move you make is and how it reflects on you and your identity and all that stuff. And you have to be able to release some of that to realize you can be safe without owning every last piece of the puzzle, which is hard when you're in it. But once you get out of it, you're like, okay, now I get it. Yeah. And I think there's also a distinctly, and I know we're both part of the Prohuman Foundation, and this is part of kind of an ongoing series with folks from our group there. There's something very human in that insight, and just recognizing that we're often not choosing some of the things we do that are not serving us or others. We're acting on bad beliefs, we're acting on bad training, bad intel, whatever. And it's putting us into bad situations, and we're creating bad situations. But there's a humanity in recognizing that, and then creating space for people to get out of it. So instead of going, that person's a damn micromanager, I hate them, all they want to do is control me. It's like, probably not. They probably
Right.
don't really want to control you, but they can't see any other way to be and exist and feel safe if they don't try to control you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it probably would behoove a lot of us, if we see our manager doing that,
Mm-hmm.
to even approach them proactively and to go, hey, I notice that you seem to be taking on a lot.
Yeah.
Is there something like, what can I do? Right? Because
Yeah.
simultaneously, two things can be happening. They can both be taking on a lot and putting a lot of pressure on everybody else. But it's really that it's just this, that desire for predictability and that safeness that I think you mentioned. I think that's dead on.
Yeah. I like your take there, coming to them and not being like, why are you so controlling, blah, 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 but going,
Right.
You're taking on a lot. Like, I see that. I see you. And giving people, the safety to actually talk about it as opposed to the weight of judgment on top of what they probably already have a whole bunch of judgment about their inability to manage things well. And that's why they have to micromanage, right? Yeah. Well, I think, on that pro-human note, I think that's a lot of what we try to do on this podcast is really speak to ways we can make work more human, because it's just innately not that way for a lot of us. There's corporate speak, and we end up showing up in ways where we don't necessarily see each other as fully human. We see the role in front of us, and that person is either an ally or an obstacle to getting what we think we need to do to be successful. And that results in passive aggressiveness. It results in aggressiveness. It results in people shutting down, withdrawing, working around, all these kinds of things. We're basically avoiding the real conversations because we just are so afraid of what might happen if we actually have them. And I know you're doing something in addition to this full-time work that you do. You've got this project. It's called the Come Together Music Project. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that and what it's trying to bring to the world?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So the Come Together Music Project is now a nonprofit, so an official
Nice.
501c3.
Awesome.
But it started off as just a passion project, a way for some friends and I to stay connected during COVID and use music as a way to do that. I live in Nashville, so Music City. And so, pretty appropriate for us, but we would get together, we'd listen to some music, we'd share some stories. But at the same time that was happening, and we were meeting, this is 2021, 2022. At that same time, both in our city, state, country, you saw this huge increase in polarization, a decrease in civil discourse. And that was really concerning to me. As I mentioned, my day job is working in and around public debate and public policy. And it was getting really contentious. You'd get to the end of a legislative session and people were like, could not wait to hit the exits because they were like, man, I'm done. I'm so tired. Legislators, lobbyists, advocates, everybody was just done because the conversation was so toxic.
Yeah.
And that was in school board meetings, in local, city council meetings, in Congress, in families around the Thanksgiving table.
Yeah.
All to say, I started thinking, what if this music thing I've been doing with friends could be used as a way to improve this condition that we see kind of in the greater, society. So started the Come Together Music Project. What we aim to do is use music to deepen existing relationships, create new ones, and build bridges. And those bridges are across generational, ideological, socioeconomic divide. And so it's part interview and part storytelling session. So I'll have guests come on, either when I'm doing it as a podcast or live.
Yeah.
And I'll interview 2 or 3 people. They have received a series of questions beforehand, and they respond to each of them with a song. And then we listen to some of that music together, and we hear a little bit of why they picked that song. And the stories are always great. The music is always totally unpredictable. And you just never know what somebody's going to pick. And we end up finding that we've got a lot more in common when we listen to one another and take the time to just be in one another's presence. And I think it's like a precursor to having more difficult conversations around more challenging things. I think it's like it's reminding us, oh, this is what it's like to be just in communication with someone who's different from me.
Yeah. I mean, it's really fascinating. I mean, I'm always fascinated when people come up with ideas where I know I wouldn't have come up with them. Like, it's just like, I can't even find my way there. And yet when you say it, I'm also like, well, yeah, I mean, like, because there is something really interesting about music. I mean, it obviously can have a really wonderful unifying effect. I mean, you think about how music can bring all kinds of people together in all kinds of settings, from a small club where a lot of people are there and they're all different, or to giant arenas and festivals and stuff. And I think it's also interesting because music can also have a little bit of that, like, this is good, this is bad. So it actually lets us sort of explore that a little bit. Like, why'd you pick that song? Like, that's interesting. But for some reason, when it's music, I don't know, there's something a little bit safer about it. There's something very different about how I think about if I'm talking to somebody about music than if I'm talking about a hot button political topic or a social issue, etc. So, I mean, what are you seeing when people show up for this? Because it sounds fascinating. Like, are there any examples of how it's kind of helped people see each other more fully?
Yeah, there definitely are. And so I mean, I can give you several examples, lots of examples, because I've done this so many times now. But something you said, I do think the music really helps with, and that is, I think there's almost like a safety in using music to express something, because it actually gives you a little bit of distance, like just the right amount of distance.
Yeah.
Because if we're talking about something, so let's say I said, all right, TJ, what's a song that reminds you of where you grew up? Okay, and let's say you pick a song and I don't really like the song.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine, but in some ways it doesn't really matter, because the point isn't tell me your favorite song, right? You actually might pick a song that you don't even like that much.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
I did one of these at Arizona State University at the College of Law.
Okay.
And one of my guests was an Arizona State Supreme Court justice, which is very cool that he came out and did this.
Yeah.
And one song that I asked him, it was him and another judge, an appellate court judge. They had never met. One is conservative, libertarian. The other one is pretty progressive.
Yeah.
I asked him, what's a song that takes you back to your law school days? You know, appropriate to the two of them. The song that the Supreme Court justice picked, he said, actually, I don't even really like this song. He said, but it instantly reminded me of being back in law school, right? And so anyway, so there's kind of a safe distance there, because you can pick the song. And I'll tell you, I was kind of relieved because it was not my favorite either.
Okay. Well, do you remember the song?
Yes, it was by ELO, Electric Light Orchestra.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is already kind of like a sort of like niche band.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it was called Let Your Love Light, or Let Your Love Shine, something like that.
Got it.
But it was ELO's like first entree into disco.
Wow. Okay.
And so he said, this is not my favorite song.
Yeah.
But
it took him there.
But it took him there, right?
Yeah.
Because music does that. It's so sticky with memory and helping us recall. So anyway, I think there's a safety there. In terms of, you know, how it brings people together, I think that music works for many different reasons. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see someone pick a song, and then as they're talking about why and the storytelling, you might see the other guests kind of relate to why they picked it. Sometimes the music opens up, I think, a vulnerability. So the most recent event we did was an in-person event, and I asked the guests, and then I actually asked the audience for a song that they would associate with a turning point in their life. I will say I got in a little bit of trouble because someone asked me and I had not thought of my song ahead of time.
know.
And so I was having to come up with it on the spot, but it's fine. So I gave the audience, they had about 15 minutes to think about this and talk about it with a neighbor, someone we're at this venue. Some people came with friends. Some people were sitting at tables where they just met someone. My wife came to this one and she was sitting at a table with people she had never met before.
Yeah.
One of the guys, I asked him to share what song. I asked him from the stage. I said, "What's the song you picked?" And he picked a song by a band called Everclear called Father of Mine. I said, "Well, why'd you pick that?" And he said, it's the song that took him back to when his father died.
Wow.
You do not go out to an event space on a, Thursday night, Friday night, and expect to tell a bunch of strangers information like that.
Yeah.
But I think that the music really facilitates the conversation, and it kind of acts as this like lubricant. And then people are able to share things. So that was a pretty cool moment. And I followed up with him after and I said, "Hey, I really hope I didn't put you on the spot. I didn't mean to do that." And he said, "No." He said, "This to me is like proof of concept. This works." And I was pretty encouraged by that.
Yeah. I mean, that's really beautiful. I mean, the impact that probably had on the room has got to be pretty huge. And I mean, the impact even just, I feel it. So it's like amazing. Like even just you telling the story of it, there's still impact in it. And I think, I don't know what it is. Like you mentioned this vulnerability, what it is about music. It's like you said, maybe it is that slight bit of distance that allows us to have this friend with us while we're talking about the thing that was hard, whether it's as hard as it gets with the death of a family member or, issues that pull us apart or just a tough time in our life where we had to kind of, struggle through, financial troubles or something like, but I can see it and I can feel it. And I'm here trying to think of like, what's my songs? And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm finding them yet, but I kind of like the idea. I think the one of the hometown, I immediately went to Bon Jovi. Where I grew up because I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
Bon Jovi was like, they always say like, are you Bon Jovi or Bruce? I like both.
Right.
But I probably like Bon Jovi more because it was just like, I was an 80s kid in high school and Bon Jovi was at their peak. And there was actually even a contest in our high school that it was across high schools. Like you had to do something. I don't know what it was to try to get Bon Jovi to play at your high school. And so it was like, it like swarmed our school, the energy of it. So like, they're probably Living on a Prayer or Shot Through the Heart or one of those old classic songs is like probably the perfect song. And I know a lot of people don't like Bon Jovi, but on some level, I don't care because I'm like, that's what answers the question.
Yeah.
And I can just hold that there safely.
Yeah.
So it's really.
Well, and I think one of the things it does is when people are telling these stories, sharing about themselves with one another, is at least this is my hope, but I think I've seen it, happen, is that it reminds us whatever I thought I knew about TJ, whatever you thought you knew about Shaka, right? We are from somewhere. We have these moments, right? So for instance, if I anchor a song category to like, what's a song that reminds you of senior year of high school? A song that reminds you of when you first learned to drive. A song that reminds you of a parent, right? These are things that are pretty ubiquitous in our experience. And then if we're sitting across the table from each other and I'm team red and you're team blue or whatever, we don't look similar. We're from different parts of the country. Now all of a sudden we go, oh yeah, but you know what? He had a moment when he was 16 learning how to drive, and I had that moment too. And we are relatable. So now what we're doing is we are regrowing some of this connective tissue, and then I think hopefully it makes people curious, like, oh, where else might we find some more commonality?
Hi everyone, thanks for listening. If you're liking what you hear and like the idea of making work not suck, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. What would make your work culture more human? Let's talk about it. All right, back to the show. Yeah, I like that, right? It's like we had the same moment, and even if our songs are totally different, the experience is very similar.
Yes.
Like that learning to drive, that first time you're free on the road, like is an amazing experience. And I don't care whatever you're listening to. Megadeth popped into my head.
Yeah.
By the way, like
Yeah.
I got pulled over like 2 months after I got my license, and I was blasting Megadeth. And I remember being so embarrassed because I'm like, oh my God, the cop is like coming up to my car, and I couldn't figure out how to turn the volume down. I'm like, there's no way I'm not getting a ticket here. Some punk blasting metal. But yeah, it's right there too. I think it's like, kind of like a scent can pull us back. It's like, it's very similar to that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I did a session once with two folks here in Nashville. One of them is the juvenile court judge for Nashville. So she's the head judge over juvenile court.
Yeah.
African-American lawyer, I guess you'd say more left of center. The guy she was paired with, white guy, runs the right of center state like policy think tank.
Got it.
Also a lawyer, kind of from a rural area.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they get together. One of the questions was, what's a song you might listen to after a hard day at work? And what that got us to do, her song, by the way, was Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive.
Yeah, yeah.
His was a song called Tall Boy, like a 22 ounce can of beer.
Yeah.
And what it got them to do is to recognize, hey, guess what? We all, apropos to this podcast, actually, we all have hard days at work.
Yeah.
And then it also got us to say, hey, what does a hard day at work look like for a juvenile court judge, right? Because most of us will never sit in that role.
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea. And it was great to hear about that. And then they start like talking, to one another about, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. And I totally see that. By the time they were done, they had never met before, by the way. Mm-hmm. By the time they're done, they were exchanging cell phone numbers.
Wow.
I was like, this is great. Cool. This is great.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, again, it's like those songs are obviously very different, but it's the shared experience. And I love that insight around like giving ourselves space to imagine what it might be like for somebody to have a hard day in this kind of a job or this kind of a job. I mean, it's another way of seeing people more as fully human, right? Because I think about like when we're driving home or something and we're stuck in traffic and we're mad at people, right? It's like, well, that might be the juvenile court judge who's just had a hard day at work and, had to do, something where some kid, his life has changed forever or whatever, and she's feeling the weight of the world, and maybe she drifted into your lane. Like, it just opens your mind to seeing that person that way versus that's just a body in a car that's pissing me off right now.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to think about it. I mean, it's a different way to almost like be prompted to extend some grace to somebody,
Yeah.
And
And I feel like as you're talking about this, like this feels so obviously needed in the workplace to me. Like I think about the work I try to do and sort of desuckifying work and helping companies, figure out how to create better cultures and all that stuff. And I'm sitting here going like, there's so much tension in the work world right now between, I think, the spillover effects of a lot of the cultural and political stuff. So we're just bringing all of that with us and we're on edge. And then you show up at workplaces and you've got mass layoffs and you've got AI and technology rapidly changing what it even means to be at work. And we're on edge. So all of those behaviors, the passive aggressiveness, the aggressive aggressiveness, the political kind of workarounds and all that stuff are probably at as high a level as maybe we've seen in a long time. And to give people space to come back to, these are my fellow humans I'm working with. They're not trying to make my life hell, even when it feels like that, right? And I come to like my own world. I worked in advertising for years, and there's always been tension between some of the departments or even between the clients. But I would say the classic one is there's the creative team in an ad agency and the account service or client service team. The creative team wants to come up with the coolest ideas and craziest ideas and get them through. And the client Services team has an understanding of what the client likes and doesn't like to a degree that sometimes pushes back against that. And basically we create stories like they want to ruin our jobs. They want to like get in the way of good work. And then on the other side, the account team is probably saying like, they just want to do anything they want. They don't think about the business. They don't think about this. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you go from 0 to 100 really quick in some of those conversations when you carry those stories. Right. So I think about, you show up to an ad agency and you ask some of these questions. And I think like the beauty of this is like, there's a lot of questions you can ask here and you can point them to different things, whether they're a little more focused on work, like the bad day at work or whatever. And then just suddenly you've got 100 people in a room seeing 100 people in a room as opposed to just this mass of folks who are just, the person who does that job or the person who does that job. I mean, what do you think about bringing what you do into that space?
Well, I love the idea. I mean, I'll tell you in my, we started off the pod talking about my day job. We did this at a staff retreat.
Cool.
And we sort of did it live. And my guests were, 3 colleagues, but they were from different parts of the organization. Somebody who was in the comms, a comms role, somebody who was in a more like advocacy role. So a couple different seats.
Yeah.
As it turned out, they were in a couple different, they were from different states of different generations also.
Yeah.
And these are not people who inside the organization typically get a lot of like FaceTime.
Right.
Because there's always folks in any organization that like, who the CEO is. All right. You know who these folks are. But do you know the finance, the H&R associate? Maybe not. Right.
Right. Yeah.
There's always folks like that. We did this with them and it was so fun because we, ask questions again, like one was time based. I think it might've been, kind of a senior year high school type song. One was about your first job.
Mm-hmm.
And I had worked with one woman. I think we'd been colleagues for like 7-8 years, something like that. And she tells this story about how she and her husband used to own this like country music bar in Arizona. It's like, wow. What? Like, where did this come from?
Wow, that's cool.
I assure you, I have been on other staff retreats with her.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that, right?
Yeah.
Because what do you typically do at these team building things? Right now you throw axes or, I feel like almost every organization that's been around longer than 5 years has like one example of the team building that they'll never do again. Like, oh, we are never going to play laser tag again. That's when so-and-so tore their ACL.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And yeah, I think there's a lot of resistance to team building because of those examples. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of it is because, like, listen, if my colleagues wanted to get together and they want to go to Top Golf or something, sure, great. I'm down with it. We'll have a good time.
Yeah.
It will be fine, but it'll be a good time for an hour. How many of those conversations are you going to remember? Very few.
Yeah.
There are now songs that I hear that I immediately think of the people who played them or who brought that song into our space.
Yeah.
And now we relate in a different way. The guy who was part of our organization, who's a really buttoned up guy, son of a pastor, and plays this song. It's called Like a G6. And it's like this club banger.
Yeah.
And we were like, what? Again, because the music will surprise you. But now he's no longer just this one-dimensional guy in my inbox. He's a real person with real experiences. I know where he's from. I know much more about him. Yeah, so I would love to bring, come together music into the workplace. I actually think could be a great way for people to build some meaningful connection.
I agree with that. I mean, even you mentioned the generational thing. I think that's a lot of people are talking about that now. You know, you've got a lot of generations in the workplace from Gen Z to Boomer. And like even that notion of like what song reminds you of senior year, it's just like what an interesting thought because, you know, the Gen Z person is remembering senior year differently than maybe the Boomer person if the Boomer person is getting it. But it puts you parallel.
Yes.
It's like now I see that person as someone who was once in the same space that I was in not too long ago. And it's like, I see, or like first job has that same kind of effect of like, oh, okay. And my first job might have been just 2 years ago, but like, that's okay. It like,
everybody had a first, right?
it humanizes them so much. And then I think the three dimensionality of it is suddenly like, I mean, like the people who own the country music bar, I mean, is a great example. It's just suddenly like, so much of work is everybody putting people into tighter and tighter boxes. You are your title. And then even within that title, it's like, oh, you're the person who's really good at that piece of that job. Or you're the person who's really good at that piece of that job. And there's some value in knowing that people have certain specialized skills. I won't deny that. But if I know somebody more deeply, more fully, and I know that they had this bar, there might be a point where that becomes kind of interesting and relevant, you know, because maybe we're doing research around folks and, you know, or maybe around the world of restaurants and bars or something. And then that becomes relevant, or it just becomes a question that I can ask. We're trying to learn more about something. It's like, well, what did you see back when you did that work? Because that's so different than this, you know, then it might just help open your eyes more. And it invites us to allow people to bring more of themselves into work. I mean, there's that phrase, bring your whole self to work. And it's like, and then you show up at work and we squeeze you into these tiny spaces. It's like, okay, I brought it, but you clearly aren't wanting it. So to create room for people to at least see it and then, you know, connect the dots where they want to around, that's interesting. Let me talk more about that. I love how that can open things up, really.
Yeah. And I think because my sense is that because music is such a universal thing, that it makes it just doesn't feel as awkward.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as awkward as, you know, if you were to ask everybody to, okay, now we're gonna have a thing and we want you to bring your whole self to work. And so now we're all gonna write a poem about ourselves.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
What? I mean, maybe like some people can do that.
Some people would. Yeah.
Some people would.
But most of us would cringe at it, and most of us would be like, "Oh God!" And then I'm going to be judged, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to stand up and share it and read it, and now people are legitimately judging my writing and my skill.
Right. Yeah.
Versus if you stand up and you play whatever, like we say, "Hey, what's a song about the community that you're from?" Or what's a song you associate with your identity? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now we're getting somewhere, and and I'm learning something about you, and you know, and even if I don't particularly love the artist, I will say somebody early on, they said to me, Shaka, what are you going to do if like all of your guests pick some insane clown posse song? And I said, I don't know. I guess we'll just cross that bridge.
Just go with it, you know?
We'll just roll with it.
Yeah. I mean, just like, okay, why? Then you get curious. I mean, I think that's the beauty of what you're doing 100%. Here is, because my reaction to that would be, okay, I want to know more. Why did you pick that song? Especially if it's like unexpected, like it's that straight-laced kind of person and they pick that song. It's like, what's that song mean to you? When did you first hear it? Like, how did it stick in you?
Because now all of a sudden you realize like, oh, we've got an onion here. We need to peel back these layers.
Yeah, I mean, I really love this whole project, and I actually think like it has lots of legs. I mean, it feels like you're exploring those legs as you go here, bringing it into different spaces, and it legitimately feels like it could help bring connection in a lot of places. But I certainly feel the space that I think about and spend a lot of energy in is a big one, and there's probably a ton of opportunity there, the corporate world and all that. How do you feel you'll know if this project is a success? Like what will kind of land it for you?
That's a great question. I mean, I'll say that there's an element of wanting to really show that music can help, that music plus these conversations, these stories can help build bridges. That is a strong desire of mine.
Yeah.
We're working on a tool that is kind of like a pre and post survey
Okay.
that will help us assess a little bit of that, right? So trying to gauge people's propensity on the front end to sit down with somebody that they think is their, like, say, ideological kind of opposite.
Yeah.
What's their propensity to do that before? And then once we show that, hey, guess what? We just actually did that. Now, would you be more, inclined to?
Yeah.
So we're going to try to measure that a little bit.
Yeah.
But in terms of the deepening, say, existing relationships, I think that's it's certainly unknown. I haven't given it a ton of thought, but I've encouraged thus far that after doing these sessions, people will send me an email or, even post themselves on social, sort of explaining like some of the things that they learned and what they took away from it. And that's really encouraging because, if somebody gives up their night, their Thursday night, Wednesday, Thursday night to come out, sit and listen to basically a program that is unknown, right? Because if you come to one of these, all you might know is who the guests are going to be. You actually have no idea what the topics are going to be.
Yeah.
You don't know what songs they're going to pick. You don't know where the stories are going to go. How often do we do that? Not often.
Yeah,
right? Maybe like comedy or an improv show or something.
Yeah, that's probably the closest I could think of. But I think what you're doing is creating room for something we're all craving, which is just space to be, space to embrace our curiosity, space to embrace ourselves and others in a, like, we're not doing anything. We're not like, it's just being, and I think that, like, so much of the world has felt like I have to be doing. And it's like moments to just be are becoming more precious. I mean, it's funny as you talk, I'm like, this could work in a marriage counseling session. You talk about deepening relationships. You mentioned the Thanksgiving dinner table. I'm like, how cool would a Thanksgiving dinner be if this was part of the experience?
Yeah.
Where you actually did it. So, like, I love the scale. Like, it can scale down and then it could go huge. I mean, you could literally do this like at an arena with certain people, like big names who are maybe ideological opposites, and you could do it there, but you could do it down in a counselor's room or a dinner table.
I love it. I love that idea about doing it at in counseling. Not that I love the idea of marriage counseling, but you know what I'm saying.
I get it.
I don't love the need, but
but
yeah, I mean, and it's funny that you mentioned Thanksgiving. So last year we actually put out a thing called A Guide to Finding Common Ground on Thanksgiving. Right? A guide to using music to find common ground on Thanksgiving. And one of the categories was, what's a song that reminds you of a specific time in your childhood? And the reason was because, well, the impetus for this was that something like 40% of millennials avoid going home for holidays. Wow. because they don't want to have like politically fraught conversations. And I was like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so when I structured these questions, I sort of really had that multi-generational dinner table in mind.
Yeah.
Like, what are some questions that, your niece could answer? And so could your grandmother. Right. And so doing it like, what's a song that reminds you of childhood? And then had some follow-up questions like, where did you grow up? What did you like most or least about that time? And frankly, these would be some great questions to ask, especially the older folks in our lives. Because, like, for many of them, we may not have them much longer, but also how much do we know about some of that stuff, right? Like, what's a song that reminds them of a friend from their past?
Yeah.
That would be super interesting.
Point. Yeah, we have a sort of an interesting timeline with people, right? So people who are older than us, we sort of only know them from some period in adulthood on. Right. And so
it's if they were like, always senior citizens.
So there's just like this vacuum of the first half of their life. that, and because often they are in a sort of position above us in the family structure or whatever, we've never sort of flipped those tables around. So it creates really nice opportunity to get curious in a really fun and light way, even though you might touch on some hard stuff, which is the beauty of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm curious if, we're talking a lot about these songs. Is there any song that reminds you of anything in particular that sticks with you, whether it's a childhood thing or school or first job or any of that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I in fact, I keep a list. It's behind me somewhere.
Yeah.
But I keep a book it's like a book of lists and almost like a discography
Yeah, cool.
for different things. So it really, depends on the thing, right? But one I'll give. So I think again, kind of coming back to how I said, oh, it'd be super awkward if we said like write a poem. Okay. Well, I think it would be maybe not as awkward, but super challenging if you said write a song about, right? Because I'm not a songwriter. Most of us are not songwriters. But we were doing this when I was doing this with some friends. We did one of our categories was what's a song that I think it was what's your favorite Whitney Houston song?
Okay.
And mine was Greatest Love of All. If I hear that song, it instantly takes me back to like the fellowship hall, which is a euphemism for the basement of St. Martha's Church in Uniondale, New York, where I went to school, where I grew up and went to, like K through 8 school. And we're down there practicing for some recital, and Sister Pat has got us all like holding hands and singing The Greatest Love of All, because I think that must have been Sister Pat's favorite song, because we sang it at every daggum recital that there was. And instantly, like I'm back in the green and yellow uniforms. They were terrible, and I can like picture the room.
That's so funny. Oh my God, I love that. That was actually the first song that popped into my head. It was either that or I Want to Dance with Somebody, which is probably like one of our earlier hits, I feel like. And I can kind of picture that video. But what's funny about what you just said is it created two immediate connections for me. One of which is kind of funny, which is I saw Whitney Houston in concert once, and it was in Uniondale, New York.
No kidding.
The old Coliseum.
At the Coliseum.
The old Nassau Coliseum. Yeah. So like
amazing. I used to ride my bike around there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. 1906, maybe, I don't know, 5, I don't know when it was, but so that was kind of funny. And then, the talk of the nuns and the sisters brought me back to, I went to Catholic school growing up. We had slightly better looking uniforms. We had light blue and navy blue, a much more flattering combination of colors, but I still hated wearing them because no kid wants to be all buttoned up all day. But so a really nice example of how a very simple expression of a song that you loved and your story around it immediately creates connection and this sense of like, ooh, there's commonalities here,
That's right. Yeah. I love that. That's great.
I know I've been asking you some questions. I'm curious, do you have a question you'd want to throw out to our audience?
Yeah. I mean, I just germane to your expertise and your podcast, I'm would be really curious to know if folks have seen good uses of music in their workplace.
Well, I'd love to hear that.
Maybe not just whatever the Muzak that plays in the elevator, right? But
right.
But I'd be curious, are there creative ways that people are using this art form, maybe to build connection? I mean, it gets used. Listen, there's a reason, and you're in marketing. There's a reason that ad agencies pay a lot of money to get the rights to a song. I mean, I read something about the Ozempic ads, that
Ozempic.
Yeah. Oh, it's magic. But but based on it's magic.
Yeah.
And about how basically it's like, what's Ozempic's greatest strength? The fact that they picked that song and had it dialed in, right?
Yeah.
So
It's really smart marketing, but to your point, it does demonstrate the power of music. I mean, that kind of earworm effect.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
like a song like that probably takes a lot of people back. And there's a lot of obviously magic and possibility. And like,
It's a good feeling. Yeah. You
Yeah.
can't be grouchy when you hear that one. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. I love that question. And it's funny because I worked in advertising and we did a lot of, work around music. And yet I can't think of like an example of where we used music in a context separate from the work, like as a way to sort of bring people together. I mean, there probably was somewhere, maybe it was somewhere along the lines we brought in somebody to play music, which I think is the first thought that comes to mind. But I love that question. I'm very curious to see where people go with it. Last question I always ask is, how can people learn more about what you're doing and putting out into the world?
Yeah, thank you. Well, you could definitely find out more. If you want to find out more really about either one of these things, I've got a Substack, and so you can check out Shaka's Substack.
Okay.
It's not, it's not really complicated. Shaka Substack. And I write about both education, but I write about music stuff and this push to grow I would say a more like pluralist and civil, society. So I write about all those things. And then if you're just interested in the music exclusively, definitely check out cometogethermusic.org.
Okay.
Cometogethermusic.org.
Awesome.
But we're on all your streaming platforms. So we'd love for folks to subscribe and check it out.
Yeah, I will share all that in the notes. I invite people to check it out. Check out the podcast portion of that as well. Are you on LinkedIn? A lot of my folks are on LinkedIn. A lot
yes,
of
yeah, sure am.
So
yeah,
I'll point people there as well. Well, Shaka, this was awesome. I'm genuinely sort of fascinated by what you're bringing into the world, and it's really sparking a lot for me. So I can only imagine it's probably doing the same for a lot of people. And they're probably like, well, you should do that here and you should do that here. And not to overwhelm you, but just know that what you're doing feels like it definitely has some legs. And I'd certainly love to see it in workspaces, corporate spaces, and, definitely in the advertising space in particular, I think, because it needs it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the encouragement and thanks for the conversation.
Thanks, Shaka. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Shaka for bringing a delightful new way of thinking about work culture to the show. You can follow Shaka on LinkedIn and check out cometogethermusic.org to learn more about his project. And be sure to visit Shaka's Substack as well. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to explore what a more human work culture could look like, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone.